No matter how important the cause, don't go out to protest. The Home Secretary urges people to stay home. After 200 protests over the UK over the weekend, Priti Patel also singles out the violent minority.
To the criminal minority who have subverted this cause with their thuggery, I simply say this: your behaviour is shameful and you will face justice.
But some defend the toppling of the statue in Bristol of a 17th century slave trader.
They're tearing down statues because we haven't had justice, fair justice. We just want the same energy you give for the white community. We want that too.
More demonstrations have taken place today. We'll be looking at what kind of changes protesters are calling for. Also tonight, Prince Andrew hits back at the US Justice Department, says he's offered 3 times to give evidence about his friendship with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. UK quarantine rules come into force for passengers arriving into the UK, but how will they be enforced? And after weeks of lockdown DIY dentistry, some dentists reopen, but a warning they'll offer a fraction of their usual services.
And later in the hour, we'll have Sports Day on the BBC News channel with all the latest reports, results, interviews and features from the BBC Sports Centre.
Good evening and welcome to the BBC News at 6. The Home Secretary has urged people not to go on public protests.
They tell us coronavirus is a great leveller. It's not. It's much, much harder if you're poor. How do we stop it making social inequality even greater? Hello, good evening. The language around COVID-19 has sometimes felt trite and misleading. You do not survive the illness through fortitude and strength of character, whatever the Prime Minister's colleagues will tell us. And the disease is not a great leveller, the consequences of which everyone, rich or poor, suffers the same. This is a myth which needs debunking. Those serving on the front line right now, bus drivers and shelf stackers, nurses, care home workers, hospital staff and shopkeepers, are disproportionately the lower paid members of our workforce. They are more likely to catch the disease because they are more exposed. Those who live in tower blocks and small flats will find the lockdown tougher. Those in manual jobs will be unable to work from home.
Answering the critics, the government's new pledge to increase testing for COVID-19. As the total number of dead rises yet again, the ambitious plan to get more NHS workers tested and back at work.
I am now setting the goal of 100,000 tests per day by the end of this month. That is the goal, and I am determined that we will get there.
Well, that may be the goal, but how realistic are the new targets? Also tonight. 1 million people apply for universal credit. The delays in payment causing anxiety and hardship. Calls for Premier League clubs to be taxed unless wealthy players agree to a COVID crisis pay cut. And
everybody was helping them, helping each other during the war. Now you can see this spirit coming.
Living in lockdown, blitz style. Words of wisdom from those who made it through this country's darkest hour.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. The Health Secretary tonight answered growing calls to ramp up coronavirus testing, pledging to reach 100,000 per day by the end of this month.
Cocked and loaded, a cowboy tweet from Donald Trump claiming that he cancelled airstrikes against Iran with 10 minutes to go. Should we be grateful or terrified? Good evening. How close did we get to war with Iran last night? 10 minutes may be the answer. Donald Trump tweeted that he'd called off some airstrikes against Iran in retaliation for their alleged downing of an unmanned US drone.
On 5 News, the moment of maximum risk. The Prime Minister says it's not time to lift the lockdown yet. Hello and welcome to 5 News.
Good evening. Welcome to Friday's 6-1.
The headlines this evening. Waiting for the green light. Fine Gael says yes to coalition. Fianna Fáil and the Greens are still counting.
I was speaking to leader Fianna Fáil earlier on, and he said the indications are good. Too early to say from the Green Party.
A daughter and granddaughter among 4 family members jailed for their role in covering up the murder of Patricia O'Connor.
A mother, a sister and a grandmother with many years left to live that were so cruelly taken from her.
A significant discovery in the search for missing Belfast teenager. Police find his backpack and laptop.
And this evening, coming to you live from Portlaoise, championship draws in both Leinster and Munster.
"139 days since the general election, and the formation of a new government remains on a knife edge this evening.
The news at 8 tonight, counting the cost of COVID. As consumers face major losses for flights and holidays, the government is urged to end confusion over air travel during the pandemic.
I'm going to Ibiza for 2 weeks in September.
We were going to go, but we've decided not to this year.
A stark warning from business groups that 1 in 2 restaurants could close unless the sector gets an urgent state aid package.
50% of all restaurants will close. 50%.
The UK city of Leicester goes into a local lockdown as cases of coronavirus surge. Could this be a model for dealing with future outbreaks here? In other news, the Golden State serial killer unmasked. A former US policeman pleads guilty to 13 California murders.
Having sat here today and listened and sat that night of his interview, he is the real-life version of Hannibal Lecter.
And more summer sports set to return, with the League of Ireland resuming at the end of July. Good evening. The government has been urged to end the confusion over air travel, which risks leaving thousands of consumers with hefty losses for flights and holiday packages they booked before the pandemic.
Mahas an nuacht an lei. Inmh an chiadla omland an ggórialta snó a bheithamon efige, bhfuil na hairí le chéile a réid agus tá súil go méid cruinniú don ggórialtas a ríiste mórach. Bhí an Taoiseach Micheál Martin th náis ar bhó dúchas I gCorca ginmh ag céileadh lena bhaintear agus a chóirde.
¿Qué tal? Buenas noches. Los gobiernos europeos tienen hasta mañana a las 12 para ratificar la lista de países a cuyos ciudadanos se permitirá entrar en la Unión Europea a partir del 1 de julio. En la lista de países vetados, 150 están Estados Unidos, Rusia y Brasil. Solo 15. En estos momentos hay 51 brotes sin cerrar en toda España. La pandemia del coronavirus aún puede controlarse y solo se va a convertir en un problema más grave si no nos lo tomamos en serio y si pasamos de medidas y recomendaciones. Así de claro lo deja la Organización Mundial de la Salud. Esto es La 2 Noticias. Comenzamos.
En esta playa de Barcelona no sirven de mucho los controles. Vean ustedes a lo que están dispuestos algunos bañistas con tal de entrar ahí a toda costa. El aforo ya está completo, pero algunos saltan ese muro o sortean el cordón de seguridad cuando el vigilante no mira. El resultado es este que ven, la playa abarrotada con muchísima más gente de la permitida. ¿Qué tal está? Muy buenas tardes. Ese tipo de actitudes desde luego no ayudan a controlar la pandemia. A esta hora hay más de 20 focos activos repartidos por toda España. Ahora lo veremos en profundidad. Solamente Asturias se libra. Siguen creciendo los contagios en Aragón, en Murcia y en Andalucía y preocupa la evolución del brote en Santander, donde ya se ha puesto en cuarentena a todo un bloque de vecinos. Verónica Careaga.
Para esta semana.
Muy buenas tardes. 26 brotes siguen activos en España.
¿Qué tal se encuentra, señora?
Ese es el momento en el que una de las vecinas confinadas por el brote de Santander es trasladada al hospital. Con ella otros 80 vecinos de ese edificio permanecen encerrados en casa cumpliéndola. Luego les contamos más detalles.
A ver, ¿dónde va a llegar? Espera, yo te la doy.
Bueno, comenzamos la semana con malos datos a nivel mundial y con la amenaza de nuevos brotes aquí en España. Cuando se cumple una semana sin estado de alarma, tenemos 26 brotes repartidos por 11 comunidades, lo que está agitando el miedo a una nueva oleada. Vamos a hacer...
¿Qué tal? Buenas tardes. Sanidad confirma 84 nuevos contagios y 3 fallecidos en las últimas 24 horas. En estos momentos hay 51 brotes activos y desde el Ministerio ponen la lupa en 11. Los consideran de especial interés. El último foco que hemos conocido esta tarde está en la ciudad de Castellón. Allí hay 16
Escudería.
Nuevo brote en la ciudad de Castellón, lo hemos conocido esta misma tarde. Se trata de un grupo formado por diferentes familias en el que se han confirmado 16 positivos, ninguna grave. Javier Borrás, no sé si se sabe ya algo del origen.
Boa noite. 8 pessoas estão em estado crítico com o novo coronavírus. Há 245 infectados em Portugal. O primeiro-ministro alerta aos portugueses que se o Presidente da República quiser decretar o estado de emergência, o governo não se vai opor.
Boa noite, seja bem-vindo. Começa aqui o Jornal 2, edição de segunda.
Jornal da Noite, com Rodrigo Guedes de Carvalho.
Boa noite e bem-vindos. Como estamos todos desde ontem, espero que bem, estamos preocupados, como é compreensível, mas quero acreditar que estaremos fortes para esta luta que ainda vai piorar antes de melhorar. Já vou aos mais recentes números, mas antes deixe-me relatar isto. Em prédios mais antigos do país, onde residem pessoas idosas, muitas vezes sozinhas, há, por esta altura, vizinhos mais jovens que estão a deixar recados nas portas.
Boa noite. Começamos pelos números de infecção que teimam em manter-se acima do desejado na Grande Lisboa.